A middle-class life used to sound simple. Work a decent job, buy a house you can manage, raise a family, save a little for retirement, take a vacation once in a while, and feel like you were building something stable. That was the promise. Not luxury, not private jets, just a normal life with some breathing room. For a lot of people, that is no longer how it feels. Now you can earn what should be solid money, do most things right, too, and still feel like the math is tighter than it should be. The bills get paid, the life looks normal from the outside, but underneath it all there is a constant sense that one surprise expense, one jump in a fixed bill, or one bad month can throw everything off. In this video, we are going to break down the new cost of a middle-class life, why so many households that look fine on paper still feel financially stretched, and what is actually driving that pressure. If you like practical money videos that explain what is really happening beneath the surface, hit like and subscribe. Chapter 1. Middle class. Used to mean stable. Now it means constantly managing. The biggest change is not just that things cost more. It is that a middle-class life now takes more active management to keep running. What used to feel fairly automatic now feels like a series of monthly negotiations. You are not just paying bills and moving on. You are adjusting, deciding what can wait, what has to be covered now, whether this month can absorb a repair, whether that extra activity still fits, whether the grocery bill is becoming a problem, whether the next insurance increase means something else has to give. That is why so many households feel tired, even when they are technically doing okay. The issue is not always that they are failing. It is that the margin is thinner, so the system needs more attention. A middle-class life used to come with more built-in breathing room. Now, for a lot of people, it comes with more coordination, more trade-offs, and more chances for one unexpected cost to throw off the whole month. And that is the bigger point. The pressure is not imaginary, and it is not only about income. It is about how expensive stability has become, and how much ongoing effort it now takes just to maintain what used to feel normal. Chapter 2. The biggest change is that fixed costs got heavier. For most households, the real squeeze is not coming from a few random splurges. It is coming from the bills that show up every single month, whether you are having a good month or a bad one. Housing is the biggest one for a lot of people, but it is rarely alone. Add transportation, insurance, childcare, healthcare, and debt payments, and a huge share of income is already spoken for before the month even begins. That is what makes the pressure feel so different now. When recurring obligations get larger, flexibility disappears. You can earn a decent income and still feel tight because so much of your paycheck is committed before you ever make a discretionary choice. And once that happens, even small surprises start to feel bigger than they should. Not because the expense itself is massive, but because there is less room left to absorb it. That is why the middle-class squeeze feels so constant. It is not built from one dramatic mistake. It is built from heavy fixed costs, quietly reducing your margin every month. Chapter 3. A good income no longer feels like breathing room. A good income used to feel like it created space. Now, for a lot of people, it just helps them keep up with a more expensive version of normal. That is the disconnect. Earnings go up, but the feeling of freedom does not rise with them. Part of the reason is that raises often get absorbed before they ever create margin. Higher housing costs, more expensive insurance, childcare, healthcare, debt payments, and the general rise in baseline living costs eat the increase before it has a chance to feel like progress. On paper, you are earning more. In practice, your financial life may not feel much lighter. And that is why so many households feel confused by their own numbers. They are making more than they used to, sometimes more than they once thought would feel comfortable, and yet they still do not feel ahead. That does not automatically mean they are failing. It often means the target moved faster than they expected. Chapter 4. The middle-class script still looks normal from the outside. A household can have a decent home, a decent car, kids in activities, maybe a vacation once in a while, and from the outside, it looks like everything is working. And in one sense, it is. They are functioning. The bills are mostly getting paid. Life still looks recognizable as middle class. But privately, the picture can feel very different. There may be very little cash buffer. Retirement contributions can feel like a sacrifice instead of a routine. A medical bill, car repair, or jump in insurance can create immediate stress. So the household does not look unstable, but it does feel exposed. That is part of what changed. The outside still looks normal, while the inside often feels much tighter than it used to. Chapter 5. The new cost is not just money, it's mental bandwidth. When money is tight in a quiet, ongoing way, it starts eating bandwidth. You are always calculating, adjusting, delaying, comparing, and trying to stay ahead of the next bill. Even when nothing is technically wrong, a lot of your attention is tied up in keeping the system balanced. That creates decision fatigue. You spend energy deciding what can wait, what needs to be cut, whether this purchase is fine, whether next month will be tighter, whether the savings contribution can stay where it is. And when that kind of money management becomes constant, it does not just affect your budget. It affects your mood, your focus, and your ability to enjoy the life you are working so hard to maintain. That is why the middle-class squeeze is emotional as well as financial. The cost is not only what leaves your bank account, it is also the peace of mind that disappears when stability requires this much ongoing attention. Chapter 6. Why so many households feel behind, even when they're not poor. A lot of households feel behind not because they are poor, but because they are fragile. Those are not the same thing. Poverty is about not having enough to meet basic needs. Fragility is different. It is when the basics are technically covered, but the system still feels easy to disrupt. The income is there, the life looks functional, but one job issue, one medical bill, one major repair, or one jump in a fixed expense can create real stress. That is where many middle-class households live now. They are not struggling to survive in the most extreme sense, but they are struggling to feel secure. And that difference matters because from the outside it can look like everything is fine, while internally it still feels like the margin is too thin to relax. That is what the title really points to. The new cost of a middle-class life is paying for stability that still does not feel fully stable. Chapter 7. The real goal is margin, not image. The real goal is not to look successful. It is to create room. A lot of middle-class pressure comes from trying to maintain the image of a stable life without building enough margin underneath it. But margin is what actually changes how life feels. Margin is cash reserves. It is lower fixed costs where possible. It is controlling lifestyle inflation when income rises, instead of letting every raise disappear into a more expensive version of normal. And it is making realistic housing choices, because housing can either support the rest of the plan or quietly suffocate it. That is why the solution is not always about earning more, although that can help. It is also about protecting space in the system, so one surprise does not create immediate stress. If this is changing how you think about middle-class life, hit like and subscribe. Because the households that feel the strongest are usually not the ones with the flashiest setup. They are the ones with enough room to breathe. The core truth is this: the new cost of a middle-class life is not just that prices went up. It is that the amount of income required to feel secure rose faster than most people realize. That is why so many households can look stable on paper and still feel like they are constantly managing the math. If this gave you a clearer picture of what middle-class life actually costs now, hit like and subscribe. And I want to hear from you in the comments. What feels most expensive in a middle-class life right now? Housing, healthcare, childcare, or just the lack of breathing room? Also, watch the next video, Why Having Cash is More Powerful Than You Think. Most people miss this, because if stability feels harder to hold on to, cash is one of the tools that can quietly give you that room back.